Hey, Reo, felicidades. Hey, ganamos. Trump, dime qué se siente
Cue the.
tener en casa a tu papá. Hello, America, and good morning. This is Eduardo, one of the hosts of this your program, The Brown Perspective, and I'm here with my co-host, the co-brain, the co-founder of this show, Mr. Reo.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Reo, felicidades. Hey, ganamos. Trump, dime qué se siente
Cue the.
tener en casa a tu papá.
You go for the soccer reference. I was going to do. Cue the Ice Cube song. Today was a good day.
Oh, nice. Yay, yay. That's a good point.
Yeah,
We shall
so.
see. So, as you may be hearing this, just finding out, I literally just woke up, overslept today, and just woke up to the news after a whole week of waking up, being checking my phone, looking at Twitter, having multiple of WhatsApp text conversations with friends and people who are watching this, co-workers who were also very looking out for what was going to happen. And here we are. We finally got a decision, but as we'll probably get into it in the next few minutes, we know that this is not over.
Yeah, far from over. And your experience is sounds similar to a lot of other experiences that I've heard about people staying up late, being plugged into the news, reading about it, reactions, Twitter, CNN, MSNBC, whatever it is. And in my case also, I woke up this morning I think at 3 a.m. So I checked this morning at 3 a.m. and also I didn't see anything changing. I just knew that Arizona was going to release new vote results, and I wanted to see if that was narrowing more towards Trump. I didn't see a big
Hmm.
difference, and I figured, okay, nothing's changed. So I actually wasn't expecting to get to for them to make a decision on Saturday. I was bracing myself for this to be prolonged, given how
Hmm.
tight the races were. I was expecting recounts, and then we'd have to wait for the recounts to finish. But yeah, nice surprise this morning, and I actually found out from someone else as well. Someone else called me because I woke up and I had to go to breakfast, so I didn't
Yeah.
check it immediately.
Cool. Can you pull up the numbers to see how we're doing? Because actually, I don't know. So, which state called it first? Was it Georgia or Arizona? Just no, we needed Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, I believe it was Pennsylvania that they called first, but let me see
Hmm.
here. So we have Pennsylvania now going for them with about 34,000 votes. Um,
Woo!
so Nevada's still Biden, Arizona's still Biden, and then Georgia as well
Georgia. Look at
with
that.
about 7,000 votes only here.
Get your
And
booty to the pole. Get your booty to the pole.
what was your initial reaction?
Yeah, well, obviously, as this week unfolded, at first I was really, particularly, think late Tuesday, early Wednesday, I got really concerned because obviously the race was a lot closer than I had thought or
Yeah,
anticipated, or that the polls had said. So, like, I think that sinking feeling of like, oh crap, no, not
not
again.
again. Yeah.
And then luckily the internet and the memes kept me strong and going. But I also, I knew that I guess at that point, probably Wednesday, Thursday, I was at a point of acceptance, and I think I might have gone through my the whole stages of reacting to a news. And then I was, you know what, I need to lo que va a pasar va a pasar. You gotta just keep going, and and even if he does win, there's going to be a lot of work that they're going to need to be done. And then you start worrying about the Senate. That was the other thing, right? So not only was the race not as clear cut and decisive as I had hoped, the how the Democrats were losing House seats, and then they lost a lot of the Senate races that some people were hoping would turn blue. So I think it was just almost like a snowball of what happened. Can we actually be going backwards in this instance? And then I think the realization that, you know what, it is going to be divided government. it looks like most likely, right? Because I think the Senate, maybe the Georgia election will help
Right.
that or recount. Or no, you could have a special election in
Yeah, in
January.
January for both seats.
Yeah, yeah, and I have some friends that actually want to go to Georgia and help get out the vote then. But because I realized that, now the Senate is more important than ever because really without the Senate, it's going to be really, really difficult for Joe Biden. And let's not forget new Vice President elect Kamala Harris,
And what
first
an
woman, first female, first African American and Southeast Asian to be vice president.
right. And what an epic fail from the posters as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone thought that it was going to be a blue wave and a huge blowout. Biden wins it, and it's overwhelming that they declare it within a few hours, and then they get the Senate.
Yeah, and I think I think those folks in that profession, and I know a lot of them are academics and in the media, but I think also appreciating how difficult it is um, to predict an election result. But I think this also gives me the opportunity to mention that one of the reasons the polls are so off is that they don't include some people, and particularly Latinos. So they don't include Spanish-speaking Latinos, and oftentimes they don't realize how that electorate. Yes, maybe they're not as big, maybe they're not as connected, but they still vote. But so I think just the whole concept of we're not including people of color, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And I guess the other piece, going back to how I was feeling, was this whole discussion about the Latino vote and whether there was a Latino vote or not, or if they voted for Trump or not, and whose fault, or was it their fault that the Biden hadn't won, or what had the Democratic Party done or not done? What did the Republican Party do or not do to get the Latino vote? And I think the good conversations a little more in depth and appreciation for how diverse the Latino vote truly is, um, and how people in Florida and South Florida voted very differently than Puerto Ricans and others in other parts of Florida and other
Yeah,
parts of the country.
right. Quickly going back to the pollsters, the other thing they don't factor in is voter suppression. So they do all
That's
these
true.
polls, they call people, they ask them how they're leaning or how they think they're going to vote. And then a lot of people show up, but only to find out that they're no longer registered. They
Mm,
can't vote. And regarding the Latinos, the one thing that I've been hearing a lot now in the news and other places is finally, everyone is qualifying their statement on Latinos. When they say Latinos, they'll quickly say we can no longer see them as a monolith, which
hmm
is true. They should have been doing that long ago. What they need to start doing is start saying, how did the Hispanic slash Latino community do in Florida, and even break it down by specific areas in Florida, because you can have counties or cities where they have a big Cuban population, and that could be even if it's second generation Cuban, it might be voting now differently than the parents.
hmm
And then you have other areas where it could be predominantly Mexican American, that the wave of Mexican Americans that moved to Florida in the last 20 years, and they might overwhelmingly vote Democrat. And you have Texas Mexican Americans, which are second, third, fourth, fifth generation, right? That they've been here even before when Texas was still part of Mexico. They may
hmm
lean Republican, but the new immigrants are may lean Democrat. So they need to start dissecting the Latino Hispanic vote like that. And I think they're finally coming around to seeing that it's not such a huge monolith, and they can't just try to pretend like we're all going to vote the same way.
That's very true. And I think at the same time, I think I heard one of the pundits refer to the Latino voting bloc as the brown belt. How they usually said the Rust Belt of voters. I think they also had a black belt at one point in terms of the African American community in southern states, and now you have a brown belt of voters across the country, to your point, that have very nuanced political positions based on a number of factors that you described. So yeah, so I think it's great that hopefully this will both educate the political class about, well, not only the political class but also businesses and others who are trying to market and reach, communicate with the Latino market, and also a great opportunity for a growing number of Latinos to be involved around those issues and to be able to continue their activism beyond the election, whether it's staying informed as to what's going on at city councils, at boards of supervisors,
Right.
education committees, and making sure that their voices are heard in between the election points.
Yep, yep. And the other final subdivision within Latinos is those in the major cities like LA, where a lot of them lean like left, like far left, progressive,
Yes.
radical left. And because a lot of them are on the front lines doing community organizing. We had the conversation with Samuel up in Oakland that is helping people unionize, and he's not for Biden or Trump. These guys are way on the left,
Hmm.
and what you would consider progressives even further left than that. And so yeah, so good to see the conversation going in that direction. I When I was thinking about what I could talk about today, you know me that I always bring up a lot of criticism of Biden. I think I'm going to hold back on that for now,
Why?
just so that we
Why?
can actually, because I just want to at least focus on the fact that even though I don't think there's going to be a big difference, I do want to at least take a moment to say that I am happy to see someone like Trump lose, because
Hmm.
this egotistical, narcissistic bully, it's good to see someone like him lose. And
Hmm.
regardless of the policies, just him on an individual level. And so we alluded to this earlier, that this is far from over. We're going to see now what the man child does, what his reaction is, and you can expect just about the same reaction as you would expect from a spoiled man child.
Yeah. So I think we'll see. He's going to be a sore loser
Yeah.
as it relates to.
Well, he already put out a
to
statement. I don't know if you read it.
no, sir. I haven't got an opportunity to catch up. Remember, I just woke up, and I woke up like this.
Chale, ese de día Edward James Olmos. Let me read this statement to you. We all know why Joe Biden is rushing to falsely post as a winner.
Oh
First of
my
all,
God.
there is no rushing. This literally took days, right? And why his media allies are trying so hard to help him. They don't want the truth to be exposed. The simple fact is this election is far from over. Joe Biden has not been certified as the winner of any states, let alone any of the highly contested states headed for mandatory recounts, or states where our campaign has valid and legitimate legal challenges that could determine the ultimate victor. In Pennsylvania, for example, our legal observers were not permitted meaningful access to watch the counting process. Legal votes decide who is president, not the news media. I won't vote. I won't read the second one, but just quickly, when I was reading this, you gotta be careful with the language that they use, because right away this tells you that this word right here. In Pennsylvania, for example, our legal observers were not permitted meaningful access. It's the word meaningful. That's the clue right there,
Hmm.
that this is a stretch, because it means they did have access, but not to their liking,
Not
right?
it, to
So
the
what
extent that they want it.
exactly? So the access was there. They're complaining that they wanted more access. And when it comes to the legality of this, you can't build a case based on the fact that legally they gave you the access but you wanted more. It doesn't work like that. So I don't think he has a lot to go on, except a lot of conspiracies that are out there, and he is going to stoke those flames, by the way. And that's really what we need to pay attention to in the next few days, to see how his base and his fervent supporters react to whatever signals he sends them.
Yeah, and And I was sharing this theory with a couple of friends yesterday, and let me tell you, and let me see what you think about this. So I think that in some ways we knew that this was going to be his strategy for months now, and I think even before the primary, I think he was setting it out. But I think I'm not before the primary, before the pandemic, but I think because of the pandemic and the move to go to mail ballots, I think there was a realization that okay, that means that there's going to be a lot more Democratic leaning voters who are going to get a chance to weigh in. And I think in some ways, his campaign decided to do the messaging, question the legality and the fairness of the election, and then get into a legal battle and try to drag it all the way to December 14th. So it gets to that constitutional deadline where if a state hasn't decided who the winner is, then it falls on the state legislatures in the Republican states, whereas a Republican legislature, chances are that they would send a Republican leaning elector to give the states electoral votes to the president. So I think that was one potential path that the campaign the Trump Pence campaign saw as a pathway to victory.
No, yeah, I think that's a really good theory on one potential path that they have. I think they had many, and I think where that broke down for them is that there were so many states that were close. It's possible that if only one state had been really
Hmm.
close, like Georgia, they would have been able to divert their entire resources to halting the count there and stalling and delaying and until that deadline is passed so that they could then take have this go to the courts. But yeah, and they that was part of the strategy. And by the way, that wasn't a big secret because even days before the election, there were people that were saying that this is what's going to happen. There's going to be the perception that Trump is going to win, but that's because they're counting the votes of election day, the in-person votes. They're counting those
Hmm.
first, and then they're going to count the mail-in ballots, the absentee ballots, and that was out there. People knew this. Even I was listening to a live cast from progressives as the tally was coming in, and even though they knew that this is what was going to happen, they still started freaking out. And that was I suppose the strange thing, and also in a way funny thing about people's reaction to this when they saw that Trump was winning. Even people that knew that that was expected were starting to get scared because of first how narrow it was, the margins, and also so I think here's what I think happened. They started to believe that the polls were going to be accurate this time, and
Hmm.
that Biden was going to have 10-point, 15-point leads in certain states. And when they didn't see that, I think they lost faith that the other projection was also correct. The one that told them that they're going to count mail-in ballots at the end and then Biden's going to surge towards the end. They
Hmm.
lost confidence that that was actually going to happen. And so the progressives that I was listening to, they were freaking out. They were the same way that you said that they were already coming to terms with the fact that Trump was going to win.
Yeah, it would have been a darker winter if that was the case. And for me personally, it's also just appreciating, savoring the irony of the law and order crowd as it relates to this whole concept of legality and what's legitimate or not, and how easily, in this case, the Trump administration would try to circumvent legal precedent and the laws in order to get the type of the results that they wanted. So to me, is the whole irony of people saying, "Oh well, they did it this illegally, did this like that," and you realize once again that it's just an excuse, a talking point that people use to talk bad about our undocumented brothers and sisters and the broken immigration system that in large part is remains broken because of them.
Absolutely correct. And a lot of the people that are now claiming foul play, all they have is conspiracies. They can point to individual incidents fraud. They can even find the person that tried to vote twice. They can find other small irregularities. Those happen in every single election. They're not going
Yeah.
to be able to find anything systemically. They have no proof. So at this point, it doesn't look good for Trump, no matter what he tries to do. Uh, I think his the Republicans will at some point start to turn on him if he keeps this up, and then they might even discard him. And look, at the end of the day, they already got what they wanted out of him. They got the Supreme
Mm.
Court appointees. They got all the other federal judges. He didn't win, but look at all of the things that the Republicans were able to get already, and also you have to think about those two Senate races in Georgia that are coming up in January. At this point, is having Trump around and having him throw tantrums, is that going to help or hurt? So I think the
Hmm.
Republican Party is going to think about that. And my feeling is that the more he presses towards something that could start, where you could start seeing this situation get out of hand, the more Republicans are going to start turning on him. Because I think the elected Republicans, except everyone else except Trump and maybe a small handful, they understand that legally there's not much that they can do at this point.
Yeah. And it will be interesting to see what kind of approach uh, Trump takes after the presidency, because I do think that he'll he'll want to remain relevant and be a voice, and similar to what he did before he became president. So I think that he'll probably want to be just a thorn on the side of both the new administration and probably the Republican establishment. I think to your point, he'll probably go back to being an outsider, but an outsider who was president of the United States. So he'll try to milk that for what it was worth, to continue to stay on the limelight as much as he can, and his family too, right? Because I'm sure that this won't be the last time that a Trump will be on a national ticket like this one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we have to see first what happens in the next few days, and then what he eventually does. Wouldn't it be amazing if they have to drag him out of the White House?
That's funny. Yeah, I think I saw a meme about, like, if this is gonna be like trying to take toddlers out of Chuck E. Cheese.
Pretty
It's gonna be a
much.
difficult task.
They have to start weaning him off of the presidency starting starting now, so that he's ready to leave by January. Otherwise, they're gonna.
That's
Anyhow,
true.
so I do want to talk more about the perception of voter fraud and all the accusations that are coming out from the Trump supporters. But let's do that in a separate recording, because I want to just wrap this conversation up, and then we could do another segment.
Sounds good.
All right. So, everyone, if you enjoy what you're listening to, don't forget to subscribe and support us. We are on YouTube at The Brown Perspective. We're also on Instagram and on Twitter. Nos vemos.
Ciao.